If I had to break down the #1 reason I was able to get my YouTube channel to over 200K and the gaming business along with it to our first million, I think less than 5% of it would be my actual gaming skill or business knowledge. What I think 95% of my success can actually be boiled down to is my productivity. So in this video, I want to go over my 9-step productivity routine to maximize my productivity as somebody who's admittedly very easily distracted and just overall disorganized. So if you're like me, here are my 9 steps to actually get stuff done. So hopefully you can bring yourself to doing some things as well. Step #1, and the thing that I think has contributed most to my success, is avoiding checking my phone at all in the AMs. The problem is, and where most people go wrong, is they literally start out their day. The first thing that most people do is roll over and grab their phones. And the reason this is so bad is because of a concept called decision fatigue. Basically, as you go through your day, you accumulate fatigue. You get more tired and decisions become harder to make. And what this means for the vast majority of people is morning is probably the most ideal time to get work done. I know those first 2 to 3 hours of my day are the time where I have the most creative potential, where I have the most ability to output and really make strong decisions. Yet what most people do, and where most people go completely wrong, is they spend those first hours of the day catching up on social media, checking their phone, or just doing things that otherwise could wait. This is a really hard habit to kick because most people have been training this habit since they were like 12. And for me, it took me many months to be able to get out of bed and not check social feeds. But when I did, it got so much easier to focus, because when you wake up and you're not focused on checking your phone, you literally just get up and then you start your day. There's nothing in the way. And so if I had to pick one thing that you should absolutely take away from this video, don't check your phone in the AM, especially first thing when you roll out of bed. This will help you massively with your productivity every day. The second thing I usually do on a daily basis is caffeine instantly when I wake up. Okay, obviously I don't roll out of bed and slam a Monster, but what I've noticed for myself is if I don't have caffeine right when I wake up, it takes me about 30 to 60 minutes to get my brain started and get working. But when I started getting up and within like the first 15 to 20 minutes, I instantly drink like some sort of coffee or caffeine, I'm able to get to work in the first 20 minutes of day and really capitalize on those first couple hours, just like we were talking about. This has been super powerful for me getting straight to work and shortening the time it takes for me to get started. After that, I really try to avoid caffeine intake entirely in the PMs. Even if I'm going to the gym, I prefer to just use the gym as the energy boost than use like caffeine, because I know it interferes with sleep. But if you're using caffeine in a bad way, or if you don't use caffeine at all, I think there is some small benefit to using a tiny bit in the mornings at a reasonable level. Do with that what you will. I start every day, get out of bed, no phone, cup of coffee, straight to work. Step #3 is intermittent fasting. Honestly, I hate that word. Basically, all intermittent fasting means is not eating for a certain time window in the day. What I do these days is eat like 1 to 2 big meals a day, and I'll basically push back all of that food intake until the second half. So after I wake up, I do my best to avoid food for as long as I can. The reason I do this, and the reason I continue to do this, is because I notice that when I eat during the day, it really kills my focus and my mental clarity for a couple hours after I eat. And I know that might sound stupid, but I genuinely think when you're digesting food, especially if you're eating like large meals, it absolutely affects your focus. And so what I do to capitalize on my mornings and to just get straight to work, I avoid food in the morning. It's just coffee, water, fluids, lots of fluids actually for the first like 6 hours of the day. And this is great because I have no interruptions. I can focus on work. I'm hydrating well during the morning, and then I can kind of just batch my eating into the end of the day. It might sound small, but these things in the morning stack a lot. And seriously, I think this is one of the most slept on performance hacks just for productivity. So give it a shot. Intermittent fasting, #3. Moving on to #4, it's a rule called output in the morning input at night. This is just a way that I segment my tasks, especially as a creator. Like if you're watching and you're a creator, or you're like, let's say a student and you have to output a big project, I've noticed my output abilities are much stronger in the morning. I'm more creative, I'm better at organizing stuff, and really just overall way sharper in the morning. So what I do, I batch all my creative tasks, creating content, writing, scripting, all of that stuff, that happens in the morning. And what this allows me to do is get these hard creative tasks out of the way first thing when I'm most primed. And then any of the easier, more mindless, just analytical or checklist sort of things, I do that at night, because at night I'm less focused and I'm just more primed to take stuff in than put stuff out. I've noticed that my first couple hours of the day are not at all equal to my last couple hours of the day in terms of performance. So by putting output in the morning, I can actually prioritize tasks way better and ultimately get way more stuff done in a day just by switching the order of how I do things. Step number 5 is called a daily highlight, or just prioritizing one single task per day. One of the big problems with productivity that you may run into is not knowing what to do. And the truth is, it can be almost impossible to predict exactly how long stuff is going to take during a day and like time block everything perfectly down to the hour. So instead, what I've learned and what you can do is just prioritize one task per day. By picking the number one thing that you would be upset if you didn't finish by the end of the day, you get a different sense of clarity with what you need to do. And honestly, productivity, a lot of it is not being bad at doing things. It's often just not knowing what is the most important thing to do. So just by picking the number one thing that you need to do every day and making sure you do that, you eliminate those days where you feel like you were being productive, but then you get to the end of the day, there's still one thing in the back of your mind and you remember last minute that, oh, there's this thing I had to do. Especially if you're somebody like me who doesn't like to-do lists or mapping everything out or time blocking perfectly, just try this daily highlight tactic. Pick one thing you need to do every day, make it very, very clear what that is. And by prioritizing that, doing it first, doing it in the morning with everything else we said, you'll reach the end of the day. And even if you didn't get everything done that you wanted to, you'll know you got the most important things done. And that's honestly 90% of the battle. Tactic number 6, and this is something I actually learned from my business coach, is called following one course until successful. Or in other words, focus. As stupid as it sounds, focusing is probably the number one thing that limits most people, especially young people, from actually getting large amounts of work done. Most people will batch work into like 20-minute tasks where they'll do one thing, start it, get a little bit done, switch, do another thing, start it, get a little bit done. And the problem is when you don't focus on one thing, you end up wasting a ton of time on the transition. Basically, we work best not in the first 10 to 20 minutes of doing something, but actually once we're in the zone after 20 or 30 minutes for the next hour or two. Yet so many people will start tasks and waste so much brain power on the transition from thing to thing. And although you might feel active, it's not actually productive. So if you can literally just isolate what you're doing, focus on one thing at a time for 60 to 90 minutes, as opposed to 20 to 30, you're going to tap into flow state and actually be able to output so much more in less time. Because just by focusing on one thing, your brain will accelerate and you'll actually work faster. Step number 7, exercise. I am not somebody that can work for unlimited hours. I fatigue very, very quickly. And while it might sound counterintuitive, I think that when it comes to mental sharpness, exercise actually gives energy. Once I've been working for 3, 4, 5 hours, I'll add in some form of exercise, whether it's weight training, running, walking. I have to get out at least once a day. And what this does, and the reason it's so powerful, is because after I get through like 60, 70% of the day, that exercise gives me something to move away from. It shuts my brain off from work, because if you just keep thinking about work all day, you'll go crazy. And it resets me in order to get, 2 to 3 more focused hours of work done at the end of the day. I'll go to the gym, I'll run, I'll come back, work for 2 or 3 more hours, and then I can wrap up the day knowing that I basically got as much out of my time as I possibly could. And that's not to mention all the other benefits of working out. But yeah, exercise at some point in the day. It's a productivity hack that most productivity YouTubers don't talk about, but from my experience, it works. Moving on to number 8. This is a concept that seems obvious, but I have to mention, and it's batching. Just like with anything else, if you want to become very productive and get a lot of stuff done, the best way to do it is batching the stuff you do. Just like you wouldn't do laundry one piece of clothing at a time, you shouldn't respond to your DMs one piece at a time, or do any business task one at a time. Even when I'm recording videos here, as I'm recording videos, I won't stop and check my DMs. I'll record every video I need to record and then check every DM that has come in throughout the course of the day at the end. This is a powerful but honestly slept on thing, and I think it just comes back to the idea of being productive versus being active. A lot of people like to convince themselves that they're being productive when really they're just clicking a lot of buttons and being active. Just like having 20 tabs open doesn't make you more productive. Honestly, the more you can batch and the more you can focus just on one thing, that's how I get the amount of work that would take like the average person 12 hours done by me in only like 4. And once again, it's not because I'm special, it's just because I do stuff in groups. Lastly, number 9, and this is just like the cherry on top. This is like the 5% performance boost that honestly, everything else, that's the 95% of stuff you have to do. But if you just want a 5% performance boost, one thing I had to mention was environment. Specifically, if you've been working for a long period of time, environment shifts can be extremely powerful. If I'm sitting here recording videos for 4 hours a day, my brain can just shut off by the end of it. And I just have to get somewhere else to switch tasks, to signal to myself that I'm moving on to the next thing, and to keep my momentum going. So this is more a tactic for end of the day. But if you're in an environment where you've been stuck there for a while and you can't focus, shifting your environment can be an easy way to boost performance. Many days I'll either work at the gym or before or after, I'll bring my laptop and go to a coffee shop. That way I can work at my desktop, get what I need to get done here, and then still be able to get like another 60 to 90 minutes of workout somewhere else where it doesn't feel like work. You can try all of these strategies, but if for you doing work feels like work, in the long term, you're never going to pass the person whose work feels like fun. So whatever you need to do to make work interesting, whether that's moving your environment, whether that's the order of how you do work, whatever it may be, the best productivity routine is the routine that you can actually follow. At the end of the day, you can't rely on just quick fixes or quick hacks to get stuff done. So even if you can build an imperfect routine and develop slightly better productivity habits, in the long run, even those imperfect things are going to turn into habits, and overall, they'll increase your productivity. Anyway, those are my 9 steps to getting productive. To recap, they are: don't check phone in the AM, caffeine, intermittent fasting, output in morning, input at night, prioritize your number 1 task / daily highlight, chunking work into 90-minute blocks, exercise, batching, and environment shifts. There are a ton of other things that I couldn't mention here, so if you want more from me, go check out my Twitter. This video is actually going to be a Twitter thread before it's a YouTube video. As always, thank you so much for watching. Let me know what you want to see next, and I'll catch you all in the next video. Peace, guys.